Welcome to another edition of the 1% Better podcast with your host, Rob O'Donoghue.
Hello there. Welcome to another week's 1% Better episode. We're back into the weekly rhythm, at least for 2 weeks in a row, which is good enough. Last week's episode with Annie Duke, first one for a while. The excellent Annie Duke, the author, consultant and ex-world champion poker player. I forgot to mention that in the intro last week. Well worth checking out if you are interested in making better decisions and how to do that without maybe so many unconscious biases that we have. And yeah, highly recommend checking it out and checking out Annie's book. She has a lot of very high profile followers, and it's great to have her or had her on the show. So this week's episode is a part two, and a bit of an impromptu part two to an episode I did last year with Nirbhasa Magee. You've obviously seen his picture on the episode icon and image we used for that this week. Last year I talked to Nirbhasa, and it was all about this 3,100 mile race to self-transcendence, which I called it. It was episode 133. I found out about this race last year, and then found out that a guy from Ireland actually runs it for the last few years, and his name is Nirbhasa Magee. Really interesting episode with him last year. And just about 2 weeks ago, a contact reached out to say Nirbhasa is running the race again this year. And now normally it's run around a half-mile block in New York, but this year, due to COVID, it wasn't going to go ahead at all. Obviously not in New York, but then not anywhere else. But as it transpired, it started in kind of a very rushed job in Salzburg about, I guess 5-6 weeks ago nearly now. It's a 52-day race. I think it's 52 days. And when I talked with Nirbhasa just last Friday, he was on day 32 or 33 and was well ahead of schedule. So again, if you haven't listened to it, it's 3,100 miles in that duration. I think you have to run well over 70 miles a day to finish it. And last year there was maybe 10 runners. This time around there's only 5. And it was just really interesting to check in with Nirbhasa to see how he was getting on, and the fact that it was happening, and the challenges and learnings he's taken from this one, running around a park in Salzburg for which will be around 52 days compared to what it was like in New York last year. And while we were talking, he was running / walking. It was just a really interesting one to check back in with him on, hear how he's going, how grateful he is for it. And it was one I really wanted to get out before the race ended. So I'll share a link to the website where you can actually track it, learn a little bit more about it, learn about the race that happens every year. Hopefully it'll be happening again in New York next year. 3,100 miles. Yeah, I think if I got to 31 miles, I'd probably be doing well these days. But I would say have a listen and take something from it, and definitely check out the episode 133, which has the deeper dive with Nirbhasa. And it was delighted to chat with him again, and really happy to share it. Hope you enjoy it. We'll be back again next week, all going well. Thanks for checking it out. As always, take care and enjoy. So Nirbhasa, welcome back to the podcast. This time, I think it was probably around this time last year that we caught up. I know you had finished the race last year. I was talking to you. I think I was in the States at the time. You were in the States, and obviously a lot has happened in the last 12 months. So I learned during the week you're probably 2/3 of the way through the race now, and it's happening in Salzburg rather than New York this year. So maybe just tell me where you're at right now with the race and how things are going and how the race has gone for you so far.
Right. Well, we're in day 34 of the race. The race started in the 30th of September, and the rules of the race are still the same. We have 52 days to complete 3,100 miles. So, that'll end on November the 3rd. And so we're basically on day 34 out of 52. But the last time I checked the scoreboard, I had 2,113 miles. So essentially I'm sort of 2 days ahead of schedule. It's probably not going to be enough to beat my, personal record, which I set last year, which was, I think, 48 days and 9 hours. But, you know, I'm basically on course to finish the race.
Very good. And tell me about the change. Obviously, New York was just out of the question. That probably decision had to be made earlier this year. How that happened, and how you actually picked, and why Salzburg was the next option.
Right. Well, actually, the whole story is very interesting. You know, I think essentially everybody had written the race off or dead. You know, because if it can't take place between June and August in New York, you know, and June and August went by. You know, obviously there was no likelihood of the race taking place, so everybody had basically written the race off or dead. One of the race directors, you know, around July, I got a phone call from him. You know, like he said, you know, it's almost like my soul. You know, I really just wish we could put on the race in some shape or form, even if we can't put on the whole race, or if we can't, you know, I wish we could just do something. You know, I don't know how we'll do it, but I wish we could, you know, somehow just do something. So there was some conversations. And another one of the runners here, Ananda Lahari, Zushin from Slovakia, who's done the race 15 times, you know, he said, you know, I'm going to do the race in some shape or other, even if I have to do it out of the back of a van. And so there were conversations going back and forth, and I got a phone call about the 12th and 13th of April saying that, you know, basically, you know, there's a strong possibility that the race would take place in the Czech Republic, and that they found some funding for the race to take place in the Czech Republic. And I sort of knew the people involved, so I knew it was like a realistic thing. You know, the people that were basically, you know, committing to funding the race, you know, like I knew it was kind of a serious proposition. So I basically, then and there, I actually started training. And this is a very interesting story, because I started training and I actually got a lot of joy just from the training. You know, I mean, I wasn't starting exactly at zero, but I wasn't like a million miles off it. And, but I put in a week of very hard training, probably about as hard as, you know, I'd ever done. But I was hard in terms of like miles. It was probably, I'd say somewhere around 140 mile mark. You know, like I put in, but it wasn't hard in terms of effort. I really felt tremendous joy and a tremendous feeling that I should be doing this. And what was kind of interesting was that, you know, as the week went on, like in the Czech Republic, they set the condition that one of the race directors had to come over from America, you know, to show them how to put it on. Otherwise, it was a no-go, you know. So that was the first thing that had to be done. And then, of course, the dates kicked off, and it was sort of clear that there was actually not a lot of, you know, there was no points person in the Czech Republic basically willing to push it through. So my mind was kind of going, well, what's actually going on there? But at the same time, I was really getting this very strong feeling to go out there and do the training. And the next week, I also put in, you know, again, another, you know, quite hard week of training, you know, including a 12-hour, you know, run in the hills. And, you know, the more and more I was hearing about the race in the Czech Republic, the less somehow, you know, I remember commenting to a friend of mine, you know, it's almost like, you know, with my mind, I'm getting one message about the race, that it's sort of, you know, it's sort of falling apart. It's not a serious proposition. It's just not going to happen. But like with my heart, you know, when I go out and train, I get a whole different message, you know. It's a very, very interesting feeling. And so then sometime around the end of August, I start hearing rumors of, you know, that's where Salzburg started coming into the picture. I should say in our meditation center, you know, like our Chinmoys meditation centers, you know, we have centers in about 50 countries all over the world. You know, our Salzburg center is actually quite, what's the word? It's quite well known for how many of its members are into ultra running. One of the members, Ushka Muckenhummer, has done the race twice already. Actually, they've got actually 2 people in the meditation center who've done the race twice, as well as a lot of people who have done this smaller 6 and 10 day race that we talked about the last year. And but again, it's kind of, I'd a little bit switched off by then. I'd even sort of I'd stopped training a little bit. I was sort of like, well, I'm not going to try and think too much about it, because it's, again, nothing concrete sort of it seems to be coming together. So I basically just sort of started getting on with my life. And then around the beginning of September, I talked actually to the eventual race organizer in Salzburg, and he said, yeah, it could be a really, we don't know what form it will take yet, but we're really serious about this, And again, I guess it's this whole interplay between your mind and your heart, or whatever. I really was kind of in the space where, okay, there's all this back and forth, and I don't know what's happening. And I'm not going to commit to anything. And it was actually only the Saturday, so that would be, the race began the 13th of September. On the 5th of September, I got a message from the race organizer in New York, saying that, the race director of our marathon team that organizes the race in New York, saying that the race is on. It has official permission from the city of Salzburg, which apparently they were able to obtain overnight. They have an official course, marked out by an official Austrian course measure, again, which happened, just in lightning speed. They really felt it was just like miraculous, but somehow, you could say, somebody upstairs was really putting the whole thing into place. And well, as soon as I heard that, I was like, wow, okay, this is actually a 3,100 mile race. And I sort of felt, well, if it's a 3,100 mile race, then I have to do it. So it was kind of interesting. There was a little bit of a whole odyssey leading up to the start, which was sort of like a little bit of a spiritual journey in itself.
Very good. So it was challenging you from, as you said, it's interesting because you say every time you're running, you feel like this will and should happen. When you stop running, the doubts and kind of questioning seems to come in. It's interesting how the head and the heart kind of are obviously at a little bit loggerheads when you're being active versus stationary in a way.
Exactly.
And tell me, when you got over there, I'm interested to know, other numbers of participants this year. Is it Ashpre Hanal was the continuous winner over the last?
Right, exactly.
Is he?
No, he's actually not doing it this year.
Okay.
For whatever reason, he says it. I mean, I haven't been talking to him directly, but somebody told me he actually feels a little bit bad that he's up in Finland now, and he feels a little bad that, that he didn't come this year. But actually, this year, they said, look, the only way we can put it on, with the whole atmosphere, the whole atmosphere of restrictions that's, I guess, taking place Europe-wide, and as well as put it on short notice, is basically to do it small. So they actually, limited the field to 5 runners. 3 of them have done the race before. So, as I said, Ushika, from Salzburg, he actually was one of the instrumental people to find the course. The course is actually only 100 meters from his house. So
it's very handy.
He basically finishes the race and goes home to his own bed.
It's cheating, isn't it?
So it's basically his local park. But the setup is just, like I said, everything was so fortuitous. Like there are public toilets here, right beside the race camp. They actually, because in the race camp, obviously we have to have electricity, and like in New York, they basically run these expensive generators. Here you can't do it because it's actually quite close to a residential area. But one thing, the race organizer actually happens to, hold on, I'm just going to take a drink here. The race organizer actually operates a restaurant called the Heart of Joy in the centre of Salzburg. And I'm looking at the house here now. There's a big cable coming from the window of this house, right beside the race camp. And apparently the person in that house happens to be a regular customer and an athlete. And basically we went over to them and basically said, we'll pay your electricity bills for the next a month and a half or so if we could run this cable out. If we could run this cable out your bedroom window. So it just basically just things sort of seem to come together like that.
Is the distance? I know in New York, was it a half mile the block or whatever you were running around? What's the kind of park?
Exactly.
Is it the same sort of distance, or is it different?
It's slightly longer. It's basically, I think it's 1 kilometer and 44 meters, so 1,044 meters. So in New York we had to do 109 laps of the block to do the bare minimum required. Here we have to do 92
a day, right?
And 92 every day.
Okay.
And obviously, if you can go over that, then you get yourself a little cushion, for rainy days like this one.
Yeah. So how has it been for you so far, physically, mentally? What's the journey like to get to day 34?
Right. It's it really has been like a roller coaster experience. The first 9 days, I knew beforehand, I hadn't trained to the extent, that I would train. Like a lot of the training, that you do before the race is actually just for the first 10 days or 2 weeks, so that you don't fall apart, because there's also a training process that takes place, like during the race. Your feet are adjusting to running such long distance. Your legs and your muscles are adjusting. So that whole process in this race for me basically took 9 days, where, I was going over the mileage, but I wasn't going that much over the mileage, and I just had to be happy and accept that I was just being slow. And then on day 10, I just took off, and I actually did, for the first time outside the first day, I did over 70 miles in a day, and I was like, oh, this is great, we're in business now, And then I had some very similarly good days, day 11, day 12, day 13, the rain, that was a huge rain day. And, I was just getting through it as best I can. But one thing with and actually just getting used to, because even in New York, we never had that like serious quantity of all day rain. So just getting used to all the equipment and all the bits and pieces. I actually think I forgot to eat properly, and my weight, day 13 and day 14 was also quite a bad rain day. My weight dropped quite a lot. So I was, sudden weight drops are not good, because you get weak very quickly. So I had a whole thing of like getting run down, that I had to deal with. And, just adjusting to that. And, since then, I've had, like good days and bad days. I'm sort of dealing with this cyclical thing at the moment where I basically periodically lose energy, and I have to drag myself around the course and, or even reduce to walking. And then it somehow clears up, and then I'm back to kind of doing like fast laps again, So you have all these issues to deal with. They always kind of crop up. And I guess the main thing, it's really just to kind of keep your equanimity no matter what, just to stay happy, stay balanced, take the rough with the smooth, and, when you're going through a bad day, basically, don't, get down in the dumps, really just be very solution oriented, and, really like look for solutions, look for things you can do to improve the situation, and just be cheerful and happy, and do whatever you need to do to stay cheerful and happy.
Mm-hmm. Is the environment, because it's in Salzburg versus kind of a block in New York City, a whole lot different? You know, if you're running around a park, do you find the air quality and those sort of differences? The heat, I presume, is not a factor compared to what it was like in New York. Is that helping?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely quite a few differences. There's the park. I'm actually running through a very nice section now, which is tree lined, and there's a running stream to my side, which you can probably hear. And then we go into a section where you can actually see, like we run alongside the river Salzburg, which Salzburg is named after. So it is very pretty. We can see mountains. Salzburg is ringed by all these beautiful mountains, which you can see. So it's definitely very, very different in that aspect. What's kind of interesting is, we definitely get the change in the seasons much more here. Because when we started in September, it was still quite hot. I think at one point it was like 32 or 33 degrees, in the first week. So we had a day, where it was just like New York, you're running through 2-degree heat. And then and now, of course, it's not like that at all. It's, 1 or 2 degrees at night and, rain most days. And, so that's been interesting, dealing with the whole change of seasons, which has meant a whole change of equipment. You basically have to bring 2 sets of equipment, one for the warm, days in the beginning and one for the, and one for now. Another thing that's very interesting, New York is sort of a big anonymous city. And of course, the race gets a lot of media publicity. So we'd always get people stopping by and cheering us on and whatever. But here also, the race has obviously gotten a lot of attention. I think people like it. It's a kind of a good news story in the midst of all of the things that are going on. So especially in Salzburg, everybody knows about it. Salzburg is not that big a city. And, so we actually get people, people are cycling past, and they're they're cheering us on. They're going up, 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 and, whatever else they say in German, So, I think it definitely inspires people here and brings a smile, to people's faces,
That's cool. And just from a COVID perspective, is there any restrictions around the actual race itself, and is that area in general hit bad at the moment? How's that?
Right, exactly. Well, I guess fundamentally we're lucky, in that it's 5 guys running outside in a park, so, but at the same time, obviously, in the camp, they have to be careful. Fortunately, given the way the camp is set up, there's no real, it's basically all tents, and, there's no real doors, so it's essentially outside, so, they're definitely, keeping an eye on the situation, because, definitely in indoor settings here, and we're following all the local guidelines, that have been set out, and, you can see notices kind of everywhere saying basically what those guidelines are. And, so, yeah, it's I guess it's like, we're basically holding the race and abiding by the regulations at the same time.
Yeah, it's probably a good thing to be doing, in a way that you're kind of disconnecting from reality in lots of ways, because obviously reality at the moment isn't that great for a lot of folks and in a lot of areas. I know you're not disconnected completely, but you're still aware of what's going on. And are all five runners still going?
Oh yeah, they're all still going. Now some of them are more on course to finish than others. The leader is actually a first-time runner, Andrea Mercato from Italy. Who's we've all known he was a very, very talented runner. And I guess he was invited to join the race in New York, and he was getting ready to join the race in New York, and so that didn't work out. So then he's unbelievable. I mean, he's just he's always fit. He's got tremendous intensity about his running. He has this explosive style. He basically just first off at, pretty fast speed, even for normal runners, and then he'll basically run about 60% of the course, walk about 4% of the course, but he still gets around in, super fast time. I mean, he's doing more than 70 miles most days. Like right now, he's about 300 miles ahead of me, which is about 5 days, or 4 or 5 days. I'm in second place at the moment. So that's been very, very inspiring, and he has a great attitude. He's, he really has a very, even a very unusual kind of, I'll give you one example. We have a little, at the one corner, we have this bridge, basically leading up to one corner, and basically it's an uphill section, so people usually just walk that section, but a lot of the times he'll run up that section. And I asked him one time why he did it. He said, it's just nice to give myself a little workout. So he somehow has this, it's kind of a very childlike attitude. He likes to take these little challenges and little, things. So, that's been somehow very inspiring to learn from.
Wow, so he must be nearly finished at this point if he's a few hundred miles ahead and, you're into 30,
yeah,
35.
I'd say he's probably 11 days out at my best guess.
Okay, so that's still a bit to go. All right, and Nirbhasa,
exactly.
And just it was great to catch up, and really wanted to hear how things were going, and maybe we'll talk again after it. But just, what's the biggest challenge you've found so far? What has been the biggest obstacle for you to overcome over the last 34 days? And is there anything different to what you've experienced in previous races?
Yeah, well, that's actually in previous races, and especially in the last race, I think we talked about this, how, I've always wanted to, go past my personal best, and increase my time. But also inwardly, I've always wanted to somehow increase the amount of time I spend in, meditation activities, spiritual activities, doing some of the spiritual exercises that my teacher, Chinmoys, recommended. And that was always my goal, to spend more time doing that. And what's been interesting, because, the last few weeks, I've had these swings of, low energy, or, that it's like I haven't even been able to, I haven't even had the energy to meditate or pray or do these kind of spiritual activities. And it's somehow kind of a real lesson somehow for me, that, okay, but you can't, do the, you can't increase your progress inwardly, or sorry, you can't increase your running time inwardly. You can't increase improve your running time. You can't improve your meditation. Okay, what can you do? At the very least, you can just be happy, At the very least, just be happy, be grateful. And maybe also it's sort of a, because, I mean, I do, listen to the radio or whatever, so I do know a little bit of what's going on and how much people are suffering or whatever. It is sort of, I feel like I'm in there with them, that basically if people can put up with whatever's going on in their lives and put up with, all these things that they don't have a choice over. I mean, I have a choice to run this race, so if people can, look at their problems in the eye and deal with them the best they can, then, I could do the same. So, yeah, I guess that's been, that's been a real lesson for me, that, even if all of your expectations or all of your, whatever it is, all of your ideas about what you were going to do and, if they all fall apart, who cares? Just stay happy, and if you can stay happy, then you can look at ways to change the situation. If if you can't stay happy, then the walls just close in, and no solution seems possible.
Very, very good. I have a little affirmation in a poster, not a poster, but a frame above the wall here, above the screen. It is, happiness is a choice, and I guess ultimately that's what you're saying there, right? You're falling back to choose happiness and choose gratitude, and certainly the more you kind of focus on that, the more it becomes.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I guess it's not to say, I mean, there might be a lot of people, or there might be some people listening for whom, happiness seems, I don't want to say that, people who are like suffering from depression or anything like that, if they only could just choose happiness, or, that it's a choice that, obviously for some people, it isn't a choice like that. But I guess I'm just lucky that for me, at least in this situation, I'm running this race, and like in a spiritual environment as well, where where everybody's focused on inner development. So that makes it a lot easier, I guess, for me to make that choice. Yeah,
the environment you're in is kind of helping with that. So
yeah, and also I have to say the support here I get, from the race directors, from all the people who come and help. It's just so supportive and so caring. Actually, my brother is here helping out, and he's just been like a rock. So that just makes it so much easier. And actually, all the messages of support I get, from around the world, it definitely makes me feel like, I'm not just doing it for me. It's not about me or my progress or whatever. That, when I do the miles, and when I go forward, it actually gives a lot of people joy. So that's actually been a very kind of important part of this year's race as well.
Yeah, no, that's really cool to hear, and it was great to catch up and hear how you were doing as you were running while we're talking through this as well, which is important to call out. Like, so you finish up around 6 o'clock every day, or just thereafter? That's probably past that time now, is it?
No. Well, I actually, we started at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, you can go to midnight. Midnight, sorry.
Yeah, about 2/3 of the way through the day now.
Right. Okay, so you have a few hours to go, but the end is near. Very good. Well, look, it was great to chat to you. I'll actually probably put this out in the next week or so, because it'd be good to get it out before you're finished, and sure, you can have a listen back to it yourself, and let's stay in touch, and best of luck. Great to hear you're doing well, and you're making the most of it, and it's great that the tradition is continuing, and the race has happened.
Oh, fantastic. Well, I really enjoyed the conversation, Rob. So, thanks very much for having me on.
No, great to have you on again, Nirbhasa. Best of luck. Stay healthy, stay fit, and stay happy.
Thank you. Thank you again, Rob.
Good luck. Hey folks, thanks so much for listening to the show. If you enjoyed it, could you please consider helping me extend the reach of the podcast that a little bit further? You can do that in a number of ways. The number one way is to subscribe on your app of choice. This helps me with the chart ranking, leading to more folks stumbling across the podcast and checking it out. You could also repost it on your social media channels. Any of them would be great. And maybe even tell a friend in person or over the phone. Pick up the phone, give them a call, and tell them about the 1% Better podcast. Tell them about this episode or one that you've heard in the past. Any will do. I would really appreciate it. In the last year, we set up a 1% Better Slack community, which you can join for free and interact with me and other members of the community and improve through holding each other accountable and sharing monthly challenges. It's a lot of fun. Check it out. I'm into season 4 of this incredible journey, and the more of these interviews and solo shows that I research, record and share, the better I believe that they get, and more loaded with actionable takeaways that you can learn from. I know I've learned so much from it so far, and it's always really, really fulfilling and rewarding when I hear from you on what you took from it. So do reach out, rob@robofthegreen.ie. And of everybody that listens, 90% listen and enjoy, but only around 10% actually take action, write down takeaways and put them into practice. I am convinced that if we can move that number a bit higher, the listeners will not only make steps forward towards their goals, but they will be more fulfilled and happy and better. Change doesn't happen overnight. It is hard, but it's all about taking the first step, whatever that is for you. You can absolutely do this. Make a plan, be deliberate, take action. Don't overreach. Start with those small incremental improvements, and over time you will see great progress. It's all in the pursuit of betterness. So again, thank you so much for listening. Good luck and stay safe.